Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to respected judges, educators, and fellow dreamers. If education were a painting, what would it look like? For some people, maybe it would be black and white. Neat lines, strict rules, textbooks stacked on the tables, endless notes. A system where everything feels organized, predictable, and sometimes a little lifeless. And honestly, I understand why. Because there were moments when education felt exactly like that to me too. But somewhere along the way, education became something else. Mine was never black and white. Mine was covered in colors. Bright colors, messy colors, soft colors, loud colors. Colors of excitement, curiosity, confusion, creativity, even failure. Because education to me was never only about facts written on a whiteboard. It was about the feeling of finally understanding something after struggling for so long, the excitement of discovering new ideas, the confidence built to encouragement, the person, the memory, the lesson that stayed long after the exams ended. And that is why when I think about education, I don't see black and white. I see a rainbow. Ever since I was in primary school, I didn't just study subjects. I felt them. I saw them. I colored them in my own way. English, yellow, bright, warm, full of expression. Not only was it my favorite subject, but yellow has always been my favorite color too. Maybe that is why English always felt comforting to me, like a place where I could express myself freely. Through words, I discovered confidence, imagination, and connection. Mathematics, blue, calm, logical, but sometimes deep and intimidating. Like the ocean, there were moments it frustrated me, moments where I doubted myself, but it also taught me patience and disciplines and the beauty of finding answers step by step. History? Brown. Rich, grounded, filled with stories buried beneath time. Not just dates and facts, but lessons about humanity, sacrifice, and identity. It reminded me that every generation leaves behind colors of its own. Science? Green. Alive, growing, constantly evolving. It made me curious about the world around me, how things work, why things change, and how discovery begins with simply asking, why? And art? Ooh, art! Art was everything. It wasn't just one color, it was the freedom to create them all. It taught me that sometimes the most meaningful things in life cannot be measured by grades alone. Maybe it sounds childish. Maybe it sounds imaginative. But honestly, I believe that is exactly what education needs more of. More imagination, more humanity, more creativity. Because education is not meant to be colorless. Education is meant to be lived, felt, and experienced. As a teenager, I've sat in a classroom where learning felt dull, where everything was just notes, exams, and pressure. And I've also sat in classrooms where something magical happened, where teachers didn't just teach, they painted ideas, where lesson didn't just inform, they inspired. And the difference? Color. Not literal color, but creativity, patience, emotion, and connection. Because a colorful education is not about decoration on the wall. It's about how learning comes alive in the mind of a student. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a world that is no longer black and white. Our students are thinkers, creators, storytellers. They are filled with imagination, curiosity, and potential. So why are we still teaching them in one color? Why are we expecting colorful minds to fit into colorless systems? A colorful education means three things. First, it means engaging the imagination. Students don't remember what they memorize, they remember what they experience. And I know this because I have experienced it myself. I remember one English lesson where my teacher asked us to act out a situation instead of just reading from the textbook. My group got a scene about two best friends arguing after a misunderstanding. At first, everyone was awkward. We laughed, we forgot our lines, and we didn't know what to say. But somehow, while acting it out, the classroom became louder. People who were usually quiet started speaking. Everyone wanted to join in. And without even realizing, we were learning. We were using new vocabulary, practicing communication, and expressing our emotions in English. That class didn't feel stressful. It felt real. And honestly, I may not remember every grammar exercise I did that year, but I still remember how that lessons made me feel. Because my teacher at that time didn't just teach us English, she made us enjoy learning it. Imagine if more classrooms felt like that. Imagine turning a grammar lesson into a role play, a game, a performance. Because when students feel learning, they don't just understand it, they owned it. And as a future English educator, I don't just want my students to learn the language. I want them to live it, to see the color, the words, as each one of them carrying meaning, emotion, and identity. Second, a colorful education means embracing individuality. Every student is different. Some are loud and expressive, bright reds and oranges. Some are quiet and thoughtful, soft blues and greys. Some are bold, some are subtle, some are still discovering their color. And that's okay, because education should not force students to become the same color. It should help them discover their own. As teachers, we are not here to paint students with one brush. We are here to give them the palette, to guide them, to support them, to let them explore who they are. And third, a colorful education means creating meaningful connections. Think back. Think back to your favorite teacher. Was it the one who gave the most notes? Or was it the one who made you feel seen? The one who made learning fun and relatable? Because at the end of the day, education is not just about the content. It is about connection. And connection is what gives color to education. As future educator, I often ask myself, what kind of teacher do I want to be? Do I want to be the kind of teacher students forget after exams? Or the kind they remember years later? The one who made them feel like learning was not a burden, but a journey. I want to be a teacher who brings color into classroom. Not just with markers or slides, but with energy, creativity, and heart. Because students don't need passionate teachers. They need passionate ones. But the truth is, creating a colorful education is not as easy as hanging posters on classroom walls or adding games into lesson. It is much deeper than that. A colorful education demands teachers who are willing to understand before judging, to inspire instead of simply instructing, and to see students as individuals instead of numbers on an exam sheet. And I know this because I have experienced both sides. There were days in school when learning felt heavy, days when I sat in class memorizing facts just to forget them after exams ended. Sometimes it felt like education was becoming more about surviving than discovering. But then there were certain moments, small moments, that changed everything for me. I remember one teacher asking us to present our ideas creatively instead of copying notes from the board. It was such a simple activity, yet suddenly the classroom felt alive. Students who thought they were bad at studying suddenly became confident because they finally had the chance to express themselves in their own way. And that lesson stayed with me. It made me realize that students do not hate learning. They hate feeling disconnected from it. As someone who loves creativity, like music, words, and self-expression, I've always believed that learning becomes meaningful when students are allowed to feel something while doing it. That is why I love English so much growing up. Not because it was easy, but because it allowed me to tell stories, express myself, and see the world differently. And honestly, that is the kind of experience I want my future students to have too. Because the world our students are entering today is different from the world we grew up in. They are growing up surrounded by technology, fast-changing ideas, and endless possibilities. If education remains rigid and colorless, students will stop seeing classroom as a places to grow. So no, change is not easy. It requires effort, it requires patience, and sometimes it requires us to unlearn old habits that no longer serve students. But if we truly want to prepare young minds for the future, then education cannot stay trapped in the past. Today, I stand here not only as a student, but as someone preparing to become an educator myself. And more than anything, I hope to become the kind of teacher students will remember years later. Not because I gave the most notes or hardest tests, but because I made learning feel meaningful. Because when education is colorful, students are more engaged, more confident, more expressive. They don't just study to pass exams, they learn to understand the world and themselves. So let me end with this. Close your eyes for a moment and think about your own education. What color was it? Purple? Blue? White? Red? Was it bright? Was it dull? Was it something in between? Open your eyes. Now imagine the next generation. What color do you want their education to be? Because the answer to that question is in our hands. As educators, as future educators, as individuals who have the power to shape minds, we are the artists, and the classroom is our canvas. So let's not settle for black and white. Let's create a colorful education for colorful minds. Thank you.